You sound like you're insulted that I made an offer of payment.
No, I'll offer you $100, but I won't tell you how many coats I want for them. You said you'd pay us money, but you wouldn't tell us what for. The conditions weren't defined, and the extension you insinuated you wanted wasn't defined. So your offer was, I'll pay you $340,000 and I'll tell you what I want for it later. Now that is not an offer.
Okay, acceptable.
Okay.
But Mrs. Franco, this thing was in the lease agreement based on your request, right?
Yes, I've been asking the council and the airport board to try to sit down and negotiate with you with what I think is one of the lowest lease rates that an FBO has probably in the entire country. And I'm glad that you got such a good deal for yourself, but it's not a great deal for our citizens.
Okay, I grant you that. Well, let's say you're absolutely correct on that. And I've offered to meet with you to negotiate.
Right.
So how do you envision the next step happening? I mean, educate me. I'm willing to be educated. Really, I mean, tell me how to do it.
As far as I know, the mayor and I have an assignment, at least we sort of had an assignment from the city council to sit down and negotiate with you. And as you could tell in the last 2 airport board meetings, I've asked Mark Anderson and Terry to gather data from other airports on similar situated FBOs and what they're charged so that we could see what a competitive rate is. But, you know, as Mark Anderson has so politely explained to me, that if we come to you and say, we want you to pay more money without giving you something in return, you'd probably deny that.
Well, let's take aside what Mark may think or said. Let's just, would you acknowledge that I've indicated a willingness to sit down with you?
Yes, and I appreciate that, but as I understood it, like I just said, you know, you pushed back very strongly against an FBO application. You've also wanted assurances about the future of the airport, hence, you know, AKA expansion or upgrade. We can't give you those assurances right now. We're trying to look at both sides very objectively, very strongly.
Okay. Well, so let me just address that real quick. I mean, I don't know how much you want to get bogged down, maybe it's up to you, but would you acknowledge that I can't run an FBO without a runway?
That goes true for an airport.
Right. So when I say some level of assurance of what's the future of the airport, is it reasonable to think that all I want to know is how we intend to maintain the runway and the infrastructure? I mean, is that a reasonable position or is that unreasonable?
So you're not asking about for expansion?
No, I never ever use the word expansion. Never. Not in a letter, not in a, nothing. I've
So
never.
you're saying, will we keep the runway maintained?
We have
Well,
20
I mean,
years.
well, it's actually in perpetuity. I mean, your lease obligation, your grant insurance obligations are in perpetuity. So the only question would be,
Wait a minute. Where does it say that?
well, I mean, the grant insurance is you
It's
sign.
20 years.
Well-
Where are you getting the in perpetuity, please?
If you use
If
federal
it's
funds,
there, it's there or it isn't there. Where does it say that?
and the grant insurance is for,
Well, I read all 39 of them. I didn't see that.
okay, I'll grant you that.
Okay, so it's not there.
It is, but
It's in the same paragraph as
it's,
the other.
if you use federal funds to purchase real property, that grant insurance is in perpetuity. I mean, you signed it. I mean, it's
the reference.
I didn't sign it, you signed it.
Where is it in the assurances?
Mark,
Look at
Smedley, we'd appreciate it if you read those 39 grant assurance.
I mean, if you take federal funds to purchase real property, your grant insurances are in perpetuity. I mean, I'm not making it up. I mean, it's the law. I mean, it's what you sign. So my only question is, what is the plan in order to fund this going forward? I mean, this is not a very complicated question. All I'm saying is, I have a business that's a long-term lease that needs an infrastructure to operate. And if you give me some idea about how you intend to fund that infrastructure, I can give you a general idea about how we can move forward with this particular negotiation. But if there isn't a plan to fund the infrastructure and maintain the infrastructure, then by definition it's going to end. And if it's going to end, crumbles, goes away, whatever, then there's no more airport and there's no more business. I mean, it's that simple a question. I'm not being cutesy with it. It's not some condition that I'm hiding in funny wording.
So you're saying, though, we have agreed to maintain a B2 airport for at least 20 years. The perpetuity you'll have to show me. So we've agreed with that. We have a lease with you for 27 years, okay? But what I almost hear you saying is that if you push the planes that land by fuel pricing or whatever business model to where the FAA will require us to go to C2, then that means how are we going to do that if we don't want to go to a C2? Is that kind of your question? How are we going to maintain an airport? We always have. When in the 16 years have we not maintained the runway?
Wow.
Or in fact, all along, when have we ever violated an FAA agreement? One time.
I'm not accusing you of violating that agreement. All I'm saying.
Also, we intend to keep our agreements with FAA. And your lease agreement. So what do you want, and what more assurance is it you're wanting? We've assured FAA 39 things. What is it you feel uneasy about? We're going to maintain a B-2
So let me ask you a different question. Do you see any scenario through which you would not complete a master plan in 2017?
Possibly.
Okay. That's an example of where there would be some uncertainty. You're required by the grant assurances to have an airport layout plan. It's one of your grant assurances. You can't have an airport layout plan without a master plan. You can't have...
We have a master plan.
No. Well, it expires.
Well, when?
Well, you have to have one every 20 years, so you're due in 2017. Look, I'm not a grant assurance lawyer. I'm just telling you that the reality of the documents as they exist in the contracts we have. And it affects not only us as a business, but it affects hangar owners, it affects lots of other users. So, if you want to ask me like, if I'm wording this thing in a way that's confusing, I'm trying to explain to you that as unoffensively and politely as I can. Believe me, I mean, I have no intention of upsetting or offending anybody. If I can make my point without upsetting anybody, I would. So, grant me that. I'm not trying to poke my finger in your... But what I'm saying is that there are some requirements that exist where you have to complete a master plan. You have to have an ALP, basic grant assurances, and you cannot get federal funding unless you have those in place. And all of that ties into maintaining the infrastructure, regardless of any classification. And my implicit question in that is, I would just like some clarity about how you intend to do that. I mean, if you tell me, well, we don't intend to do that, then I say, okay, well, therefore, I don't understand how you have a plan to maintain infrastructure, which then affects what kind of deal I can make with you. If you say, well, we intend to do that, then we intend to see what the options are, and we intend to choose the most logical funding option to support the infrastructure, then I can easily say, great, now we got some common ground. I know that it's going to be there and we can operate. Let's make a deal. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Let me take at face value what you just said. You want clarity. The clarity has to come from a master plan, which we're not doing until next year. So what are we negotiating within a year for then? There won't be clarity, at least, even if we do a master plan until it's done, right?
Well, don't pick on me. I'm not the one that asked for negotiation.
Well,
I mean, I'm not the one that asked for me. You can't pick on me for responding to your
but
request.
the clarity you're asking for in the negotiation is a master plan, which won't be done at least for a year if we do it.
I mean, if you think it's in your best interest and your city's best interest not to negotiate a better deal with the FBO, then by all means, don't do it. I mean, I'm not sitting here telling you that I absolutely must have this. I'm just responding to your request. I mean, I'm trying to be polite, and I'm trying to be, but I mean, it's a little bit, to be attacked for responding to your request is a little,
Okay.
I mean, I don't do anything.
We feel a part of these negotiations are that we need to see what you're already supposed to be promising us. We need to see your books. And we've asked for 2 months now to be able to see them. And we're getting stonewalled. And yet it says right here, okay, that you're supposed to be doing it every year without our request. It says it right here.
Right.
Okay, now, we respectfully request that you fulfill this part of the lease
Sure.
and that you give us this as soon as possible. And I'm going to make this motion. But how can we enter into lease negotiations when, you're not giving us key information that we need?
Let me ask you this. Take aside the argument of going through the let's say the legalities of it and the protections that we are entitled to. How does that information affect your understanding or your evaluation?
We are the leaseor.
I understand.
You are the leasee. We are trying to get information about the accurate state of that airport.
Right.
You're withholding information that helps us understand that accurate state. You know, we're trying to get other information too. And I realize that I haven't had support from past councils to push for this.
Right.
Okay, but this is a new council. Okay? And the support is there.
I
And we're
understand.
trying to fulfill our side.
So, but when you think that your ability to evaluate the fair market value of your property is
I'm not a finance major, all right? I have other expertise. I'm just saying that we're looking to get information. We need that information.
Right.
It's part of our understanding for lease negotiations.
If we want to be fair to you, Nadim, if you're on the cusp of going under, we'd certainly want to know that from your financials. But if you're making lots of money, maybe we need to negotiate a little differently. You think? I mean, you say there's not room for another FBO because it just isn't room. Well, is there room or not room? How are we going to know?
Well, look, we're going to go through with all due respect, I mean, I know it's in the document and it's been 20 some years and that request has never been made that way.
New council.
I understand, but that has nothing to do with the legalities of it. Well, like I said, I don't want this to end up being a legal discussion tonight. We're going through the motions in order to get that done, and we've made several offers to via letter to Mark, and I urge you to read those and understand what we put in there. So there are some hoops that we need to jump through just because it's been a long time since this has been exercised and interpreted this way. But what I would also say to you is the value of your leasehold is completely divorced from whatever financials I may show you, or anybody else sitting in my position. Meaning, I urge you to have an understanding of what your leasehold is worth. It has absolutely nothing to do. I mean, if I'm a business idiot, and there are a lot of people here that seem to think I'm a business idiot, but let's suppose I'm a complete business idiot, and I spend money on stupidest stuff you can think of. I've overpaid people and bought toys I didn't need, and I lost a lot of money. That does not diminish the value of your leasehold one single dollar. So the value of your leasehold and your property is predicated on the overall volume, the location you're in, what terms you're willing to offer, and quite frankly, if I can be very honest with you, is how you manage your airport. How you manage your airport has a direct correlation to the value that you will get out of that, whether it's me or anybody else. I can get buried in an avalanche tomorrow, somebody else is sitting in my chair, and they will still want to know how you intend to manage your airport, maintain infrastructure, and that ties into the value.
I think the value is what we're trying to get at.
Right.
I'm a real estate agent. You hear people say, oh, I want X for my property, and somebody else says, well, I'm not going to pay that. What it's worth is what someone will pay, right? You say in your presentation that you're not a monopoly, but at this airport you are as an FBO. I don't know how to test that value without checking if there's other FBOs that might pay more than you do. You're saying, trust me, the value is what I'm paying, which is very, very low. And it's not worth more, but how would we know that? In a real estate market, you put it up, you offer it, you see if there's any takers. Tracy can say if there's no takers in 6 months, maybe you lower the price. But if there's lots of takers, we maybe raise it. You're the only taker here. And maybe we need to look at things to see if we need to check the value in the marketplace. You do have a monopoly, irrespective of what you say here. At this airport, you right now are the only FBO. You're the only game here. But you're not necessarily the only game that can be here. And the value is what we are trying to get at. Of the FBO, of the airport, of our share of landing fees versus tie downs versus high gas prices. You say if there's no relationship, well, let's go out and see what the market says.
This coming in about 3 minutes, let's get moving on. Is there any other items the council want to deal with? Nadim?
Well, I'd like to make a comment, which is, I realize that we have a lease with you, two-way deal. We need to keep up our end of the bargain, we need to keep up your end of the bargain. And as long as there's a lease agreement between us, I don't see any legal reason why you have to renegotiate with us or we have to renegotiate with you unless there's a give and take on both sides. I'd have to ask our attorney in the back of the room, but I think that's correct, isn't it?
What, I agree with what you said. Yes.
Thank you.
There's no, I think the point you're making, Jeff, is there, Councilman Bradshaw, is that there, I don't know of any legal reason that would require either of the two entities or force them to renegotiate.
As far as the financial statements, yes, it is in the contract, but no, if the lessee has never given a financial statement to the city in 21 years and nobody said a word about it and suddenly we want it, I'm not sure if we could say, well, you're in violation of your lease if we've assumed for 21 years that you really don't need to do it. Is that also correct?
That's correct. Well, I would say that, I would not go so far as to say that he's in violation simply because he hasn't offered these financials. That doesn't automatically default to say that he's in violation. If it's true that the council or the past councils have never requested it, notwithstanding the fact that it is something that the city could request pursuant to the lease, I don't think he's ever denied it, and I don't think he's in a position where he is denying it presently. So I don't know that there's a violation. I think that's...
Okay, the other thing I'd like to say in regards to the financials, on one hand, we're threatening the second FBO, and on the other, we want all this information, and I understand why you want a confidentiality agreement. I mean, there is a right to privacy, and turning over your financials to the city, if they get in the wrong hands and it happens to go to people who want to be the second FBO, I understand that suddenly they got inside information on how much you charge for everything, and so they can outbid you. So I understand that. I'm just not sure I understand entirely. Somebody told all the pilots out there that the city council wants to hear from all of them about fuel rates. In the last 2 days, I've got 30 some odd emails. And some of them were very complimentary to you and to your business. Most of them said, well, the rates aren't competitive. I don't know how to take it. I don't know why I'm getting all these emails, but about 2/3 of the emails that I've gotten the last 2 days are from pilots. As far as the C2, B2 thing, I agree that's really not an issue, I don't think, between you and the city, in my estimation. I don't know what to say about the public. I mean, they said in the last campaign, well, are you for expanding the airport to C2? And every single candidate says, no, we're not. But suddenly, that's not the case. If you say that we want to do something for safety's sake, we're automatically saying we're for expansion of the airport, which I think is malarkey myself. But I myself want to get along with the FBO or the FBOs, and we ought to have a good working relationship, and I have to apologize for the way you've been attacked tonight.
Thanks, sir.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
I'd like to just ask just a couple quick questions. I don't want to address the emails that Jeff talks about. I think I don't know if everybody's on there, but I'm sure we probably were. When you mentioned about how some of these things affect the constituents, one of the things that came to my mind was email box full of people explaining that, of pilots that are here, that have a hangar here, they have planes here, and they fly to another airport to fuel up because it's cheaper, and they also get their maintenance done somewhere else. And my question is that does kind of affect the constituents if in fact fuel prices are too high and it's too difficult to get maintenance from the local FBO. We've got local pilots who probably most of them live here, maybe not, I'd say more than 50% live here. If they're flying to another airport to fuel up, to get annual maintenance or annual inspection, regular maintenance done on their planes, is there any reason why they couldn't do that here and get a competitive price and work, have their planes maintained at your shop?
Just to understand the question, Jeff, you're asking me why some of these airplanes can't be maintained in our shop in Heber?
Yeah.
Okay. It's virtually impossible to maintain this facility to every type of airplane around. Nor do we have a requirement to do that. Our FBO agreement says we're also approved as a maintenance facility, and we have to meet the minimum requirements in terms of space, etc. But there's nothing that says that I should be able to adequately maintain full maintenance on every type of airplane possible.
Well, I understand. I'm not saying absolutes.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I mean, well, you tell me. I've been told by a bunch of pilots, so I want to hear from you. How many locals do come and have their planes maintained by you?
How many local-based airplanes?
Yeah. Airplanes are based here at 36U.
Oh, I mean, I'd have to talk to my director of maintenance and pull out the exact number, but certainly on the airplanes that we specialize in, that we have a specialty in.
Right.
Meridians, Pilatus, a good number. We're also sort of a destination maintenance facility for airplanes flying from all over the country. We have airplanes that come in from New Jersey and Montana because of our expertise. But this expectation that your local maintenance facility can maintain every single airplane possible at whatever rate they want is an absurd concept. You can't achieve that. So airplanes are going to go fly elsewhere for maintenance. Okay? And there's some maintenance that we really won't do. And I'll tell you one story. And I'll just, if I can emphasize to you how I view that and how impactful it is to me. There's the guy that started the museum out here, Ed Strauchan. Remember Ed Strauchan? So Ed Strauchan had an airplane, I think it was a warbird of some sort, so yeah. And Ed Strauchan wanted us to do the maintenance for him. At that time we were doing maintenance on those kind of airplanes. And we quoted him, we actually did the work for him. And he was aghast at the price. And he would beat me up day in and day out. He'd argue about whether I should have spent $50 on the UPS overnight or whatever. And I finally said to him, I said, Ed, I can't make you happy. I can't let this airplane out of my maintenance facility to our standards and make you happy. So I know you personally, I know we're friends, but you need to go somewhere else because this is not going to work. So Ed Strauchan takes his airplane to some fly-by-night operation in Nevada. Okay. 3 months later, I hear the blood-curdling call on the Unicom. Ed Strauchan ends up in this, crashes over by Monument Hill over here with his best buddy in the backseat of his airplane. Okay. It's a terrible loss. But there's this mentality of I want cheap maintenance and you need to do it for me. And if you don't do it for me, I'm going to get upset. There's a risk associated with it. And there's no requirement to be able to have to touch every single airplane possible and be able to do adequate maintenance on it. So yes, there are some people who are going to say, well, I have to fly my airplane somewhere else. But the expectation that we were an adequate provider to everybody at whatever price they want is simply not reasonable, and it's not required by regs.
Well, and I don't mean to imply that it was required, nor did I mean to imply that you should be maintaining every airplane out there. I'm just curious of the ratio of I don't know, I guess I'm just sticking with the, get stuff done local. I like that idea. I like to go and shop at Dave's, and I like to buy my gas at Jeff Wade's gas station, and that's because I live in Heber City. And so I guess I was just applying that same thing to the airport.
Right.
If I had a plane out there, I would probably want to have it maintained by the FBO there. And I'm curious about how many locals would be able to or are currently having maintenance done.
I would say that
Other
on the
stuff.
smaller airplane size, probably the majority go elsewhere. What I don't understand is if there's this much demand, why there isn't an adequate maintenance shop to service those type of airplanes. That I don't understand. I mean, I think if that were true, then somebody would start up and be flooded with business and would be busting at the seams.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
I mean, I don't have any more space. I mean, if you were to approve a maintenance facility, I'd build a 15,000 square foot maintenance facility tomorrow. I mean, I'm physically out of space. But for somebody to look at that maintenance operation and construe it somehow in a negative light, I quite frankly think that you folks should be proud of that maintenance facility. I mean, you got a high-tech business coming in from all over the country. We got people flying airplanes from New Jersey to come here. We got high-paying wages in the maintenance facility, same technology. Not everybody lives in Heber, but I think half live in Heber. Again, I'm not a bragger, but I think you'd want to put that up and say, okay, well, this is the type of business we want. Big jobs, we're doing engine changes, we're doing big avionics maintenance jobs. I don't know why you'd want the opposite.
Just a really quick question, are these rigging and, I don't know, planes, aren't those C2 size planes?
No, sir.
They're B2s?
The V or they're single engine turbo.
Kind of a specialty plane when you said that people are coming from New Jersey, because that's what you specialize in?
Well, we are a service center for that type of airplane, so we're appointed by the regional service center as a maintenance facility for that specific type of airplane. A lot of airplanes, it's a Swiss-built airplane, it's a large cabin, turboprop, jet engine with a color on it. We've had that designation since 2006.
So that's your specialty, and to liken it to my world, I understand you're not a Ford guy or a Chevy guy, and you specialize in Chevrolets. I mean, is that fair? It's a brand, right, that you specialize? Swiss-built type planes.
Well, we're an FAA-approved maintenance facility, so we're licensed by the FAA to conduct maintenance on a variety of airplanes. So, which means that we're not a flight service center to the exclusion of all others.
Okay, but I'm trying to get to what you said was your specialty, and why they come from New Jersey.
Yes.
That's a specialty Swiss-built type plane that really comes here because that's your specialty.
Well, our specialty is doing maintenance on that airplane, not to the exclusion of all others, but that's our specialty. So we're appointed to the service center the same way we are an avionics dealer for every major avionics manufacturer in the United States, including Garmin and Honeywell. So we do a lot of high-end avionics. Well, Jeff, you went there, and you've seen airplanes that were carrying up to